afternoon, good evening, good night, whichever part of the world and whatever time zone you're joining us from. Welcome! Welcome to the 2023 edition of the Black Consciousness Festival, where we're focusing on healing and reconnection for a second year. The Black Consciousness Festival is a global platform that connects people of African descent with each other by sharing and encouraging exchange through information, traditions, histories, intentions, traumas, celebrations, legacies, stories connecting to pride, power, and practice. Our inaugural year was in 2020, where we created a month of conversations and activities around topics of Black consciousness. In 2021, we had a few events: a youth festival, a weekend of conversations and reparations, and in November, conversations on shift, as we explored the many ways in which we as people of African descent shared and rebirthed elements of ourselves. In 2020, we focused on healing and reconnection for the first time, and we've decided to continue that theme this year because it's so important for our soul. The recordings of all of these conversations are available on our website, theblackconsciousnessfestival.com, and our YouTube channel. As you listen to the conversations, we encourage you to be kind to yourself. Pause, breathe consciously, move, and appreciate all that you are. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good morning, and welcome to Black Consciousness Festival 2023. My name is Sean Samad, and I am the Communications and Content Director of the festival. And it is my pleasure today to welcome two amazing individuals who will be discussing with us the importance and power of community in healing. Leading us in this conversation is our own Executive Director, Erica M.B. Ashton. Erica is a multifaceted individual who believes in fully exploring the opportunities presented as we intentionally engage with life. She is a people engagement and development professional and lecturer with over 25 years experience in the area of human resource management, and is also a yoga teacher, artist manager, event producer, and she believes in the importance and power that each person has to contribute to building and maintaining community. So she's the best person to lead this conversation. The philosophy revolves around living life fully. And joining Erica today, we have the extreme pleasure to welcome Dr. Laurena White with Erica today to discuss community. Dr. Laurena White, with over 20 years of service and experience in the field of women's health, ranging from birth doula to obstetrics, gynecology, and reproductive and endocrinology or infertility, including acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine. Dr. Laurena White is a disruptor. As the managing director of the Udemia Center and an integrative reproductive medicine and women's health oasis, she led a team that facilitates the health, wellness, and healing of complex women's health challenges, but not limited to uterine fibroids. Dr. Laurena White is also the new director, I believe, she'll correct me if I'm wrong, executive director of Community Healing Network, which was launched in 2006, and is the only organization focused exclusively on building the global grassroots movement for emotional emancipation. Welcome, Dr. White.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful welcome.
Enjoy.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
How are you? Good morning.
Good
How
morning.
are
I'm
you?
hoping it's good morning, afternoon. I think so. We're all in different time zones. So good day to everyone.
Good
And
day.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Erica, for having me.
Yes. How are you doing?
I'm well. It's change of season here, but other than the little, cold temperatures in the morning, I'm doing wonderfully.
Great. Yes. So we can start. I invite you, if you want to lead us in some breaths, and then we could recognize some ancestors who we want to bring into the space with us.
Absolutely. If we could all just get us, yourself comfortable in your seat. Make sure your sits bones are all comfortable. You're relaxed, your shoulders are down, just like getting rid of all that tension of the week, the angst, the anxieties, and just softly close your eyes. And just as with our soft eyes, our eyes closed, I'm going to take a deep breath into the sound of my voice, the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And at the top of that breath, hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and slowly exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just repeat that cadence of 4, 7, 8 breathing, because this will bring all our cortisol levels down. This will bring us into the present and prepare us to be together in this time and space that we're sharing right now. So one more time, breathe into a count of 4, hold it for 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale slowly, calmly for 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to do this last one at your own speed and at your own rate and rhythm that feels comfortable for you. And now, as we're all bringing ourselves back to this collective space, slowly begin to open your eyes, and so we can share into this wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Laurena.
Yeah.
The importance of breath is always such a great reminder. And I want to bring into the space with us some of my own ancestors who are with me this morning, whose spirit
Yes.
I'm feeling. So I call the name of my mother, Vera,
Yes.
my grandmothers, Brownie and Ivy,
Yes.
and an aunt who is with me. She passed in August this year. She was 96, Amy.
Yes.
So I want to bring them into the space with us, inviting them to hold us with care and love as we engage in this conversation.
Yes.
And is there anyone you want to invite in?
Just my grandmother, Charlotte Rebecca, my other grandma, Bernice Lewis, and my great aunt, Elizabeth Morrison.
Thank you. We give thanks for them. We give thanks for their life and their presence and, the legacy they've left us.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start by talking. I was thinking about this conversation in community, and I was wondering what would be your earliest experiences, memories of being in community?
Well, that's going to definitely go back. Our family did a lot of women's circles. And so when there was a rite of passage, and for us, that was when a young woman got her first period, we would all, aunts and uncles, grandparents, more so aunts, not necessarily uncles, but sometimes uncles, but for the most part, just our female identifying family members would get together, cousins, and just have a little ceremonial ritual, vaginal steaming. And so we would all be together. You'd have your first steam, and each one of the women would talk about something that was important to you as not only being a woman, but a Black woman, what that means in terms of life and moving through life and the way forward, but also what it meant for your overall health and wellness, not just your womb health, but your mental health, your spiritual health, and all the things, and all the way up through your vocational health and what you decide to do with your life. And it was a time where we all would get together and laugh and joke and eat, but really being able to identify with the, truly important parts of our bodies, being proud of them, but also learning how to take care of them. And it was a wonderful way to share stories, a wonderful way to just, be with, some of the women that may have been pregnant, and really being able to just see all the different aspects of that woman's life cycle from the beginning all the way up through the end. So it was a beautiful time.
I would expect so. It sounds very rich. My own experience of community is it's based in family as well, in terms of where I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And this is something I remember, it would be what would be considered an immigrant community because all of the people around us were from different islands. So my parents were from St. Vincent. We had
Okay.
neighbors who were from Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, Tobago. So at one time, I felt that, we were the only ones who were born in Trinidad and Tobago as a young person. But for me, that was the first memory I had of community because everybody was there and was considered to be family. We had lots of people in the community who I think were related to my father.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would hear all the time, this is your cousin, without really knowing what the connection was, but
Right.
knowing that they all family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a positive experience overall because linked to that aspect of community was also church, and it was a
Yeah.
spiritual Baptist church where you lived in church as a child. You were
Yeah.
always there.
Right.
Somebody there, guiding, leading the way, having these ceremonies and enjoying it. But I'm thinking back also being resentful sometimes because you didn't get away with mischief too much. Once you were, somebody was always able to see
Yes.
and to report on you. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it was good, but as a child, I think those were the aspects that I found to be challenging.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I think we get away from those. We have gotten away from that in terms
Yes.
of, this is your family, this is my child. I'll discipline my child the way I want. That's kind of mind your business type of philosophy. Whereas when everybody is your mom, everybody's your auntie, everybody is your cousin, that means you have the rights and rules and regulations that govern a family, and that family is
Yes.
now expanded. But now you're always taken care of, and your needs are always met. And so it has its
And your needs
trade-offs,
are
but
always there.
it brings you back to, like, if everyone's family, then we're going to treat each other that way too.
Yes, yes. And I remember too, even, and I remember this, continuing even into my adulthood, working in the city
Yeah.
and somebody from the community seeing me and my mother knowing about it before
Yeah.
I could even get back home.
Yes.
So it was kind of like you understood, but it was like, why don't they mind their own business? But
Because you are their business. That's the thing. You are their business. You are
we
their
are
business.
their business.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I think with hindsight, I begin to see the love and the appreciation that came through community like that,
Right.
where we really looked out for each other. And
Yes.
we had these rituals which ensured that we stayed whole and healthy with even all of the trauma and everything else.
Right.
We
Right.
ensured that.
It provided a little bit of insulation in to some way, shape, or form, so that all those, some of the triggers, some of the injurious nature of even words, you were protected a
Mhm.
little bit because people were there to insulate you from some of those dangers, some of those traumas.
Yes, yeah. And what I found too is that, and again, looking back, you might have had things which affected you outside of the community,
Yeah.
but you didn't think sometimes you could share it within the community,
Yes. Yeah.
which I think is part of the challenge that we have to undo as people of African descent, knowing that community really means something.
Yeah.
It is how we grow, it is how we heal, it is how we pass on our knowledge, ensuring that we remain whole.
Absolutely. And I think, like you just hit on, is that when we are in community, everything that is heightened outside of that community can now be taken into context. There can be appropriate explanations, there can be support, there can be guidance that you're not going to receive outside communities, outside of just the day-to-day vernacular, even to vernacular, even to the words we use that may be completely foreign outside of the community that we keep, that we grow, that we cultivate, that we create for ourselves. And sometimes we take it for granted that outside the community, those things just don't exist, and they're not just naturally built in to the overall society at large.
Mm-hmm. 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 So for me, I'm expanding community because I see community as the people we have around us, but I'm also
Mhm.
thinking in terms of our ancestors,
Yes.
in terms of nature,
Yes.
in terms of all of these things that are around us and that are so important for us. For me, it's important to recognize those elements of community, because it's not just who we can see, it's also
Hmm.
who is not there, but who is also there in the space, if we if we think in
Hmm.
terms of it.
Right.
That space is never empty, that there's always something there, and therefore in that community space, then we have so many elements
Right.
that are there, that are available for us.
Yeah. And when you talk about community, and you talked about earlier on that spiritual nature of life, that
Yeah.
growing up in church and having that spiritual component. I think even now there's so many different aspects to religion, but we're seeing it playing out in real life between Israelis and Palestinians and Muslims and Christians. And I find, all of the different people that I come in contact with on a daily basis, that all our religions are different, but spiritually, that connectedness is what brings us together. That is community too, even outside of, those different types of religion, but the spirituality, the connectedness, that is what brings us together. That is the thing that binds us. And we can still
Hmm.
connect in that way as we move through the world.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important for us to recognize that interconnectedness, because I'm thinking to another kind of community that I've been building up for me, unintentionally.
Mhm.
I walk.
Yes.
And when you walk consistently, you begin to build a community from other walkers.
Right.
So, the first time you would probably pass a little nod. And after a couple of times of people seeing you, they begin to greet you
Right. Yeah.
and to engage with you. And if it is you miss a day or two,
Yeah.
they're wondering what is
Where
happening
were
with
you?
you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, where were you? They want to make sure everything is okay with you.
Right.
And for me, that's another way of recognizing that interconnectedness. That as I walk, I'm going to greet passengers on the way, people who are
Mhm.
there with me.
Yeah.
I'm
And who
going
are
to
now
make
expecting to see you or expecting
and
that
who are now
presence.
expecting to see me.
Yeah.
Yes, and to probably stop. Whereas before we would have passed each other, we might
Right.
stop for a second just to greet each other in a particular kind of way.
Yeah.
And then I expect to engage with the trees that cover me as I walk,
Right.
or the birds I hear as I'm walking, or the
Right.
sun coming through on my body as I'm walking. And,
Yes.
and these are the elements that remind me that I am really in community.
Hmm.
I am in communion with all that is in the
Yeah.
world. And therefore, there's a way I have to engage, or I should engage. I should
Right.
respect that in terms of how we move through life. And
Yeah.
so these are some of the other ways I'm thinking in terms of community.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought in the elements, because I think we take those for granted, because the sun, the fire, the earth, the literally the earth that we're walking on, literally the whole the globe itself, that the planet that we're living on, the metal, the
Yeah.
rocks, the minerals that are supporting the plants that we're eating or even admiring, that we're tending to, the water, the purity of it, so that it's potable, so that we can drink it. And then even the trees and all the shrubbery and the flowers, all those things are providing sustenance for us in one way or the other, whether it's for food or for just to observe and look at for our pleasure. Those things are important too. And that, like you mentioned before, those are part of our community as well. And we need to tend to them and take care of them equally
We
so.
need to tend to them. Yes, we need to tend to them and take care of them. So I witnessed the transition ceremony
Mhm.
for you as executive director. I saw, I was in the audience and
Uh-huh.
witnessed that so emotive moment
Mhm.
of that transition being made. What was it like for you?
Well, let's see. I became executive director in mid-May of this year. And so
Hmm.
by the time the Community Healing Days opening ceremony happened, I had been under Anola's, wing at this, officially for about 4 or 5 months. And so really
Yes.
being able to learn from her and just see her in action, her knowledge, her wisdom, her passion, her just love, not just for CHN, but for the work that's being done, her dedication, and just the trail that she's been blazing. Because we are, focused on emotional emancipation, psychological liberation. And while other organizations are talking about diversity and equity and inclusion and justice and belonging and accessibility, CHN has, is blazing a trail that is really talking about white superiority, and Black inferiority, and defying that lie, and truly embracing the truth of our dignity, our humanity, our Black humanity. And there aren't other people who are talking in this way. And I felt that not only was it bold, it was audacious in terms of her mission and vision, but truly inspiring in terms of not just continuing that legacy, but growing on it and building upon it. And so just, that being a part of that ceremony was only not just inspiring for me, but I really realized I was, taking a step with, shoes that I could never fill, but a way to carry that on and truly bring this organization and its mission and vision not only to light, but to share it and grow it all across the globe.
Yeah, and I think it's such a vivid reminder for us that we can all do something. And I think that is what I feel empowered by, by CHN, that this woman decided that there was a gap
Yes.
in spite of, and decided to do this, to do this thing, to build community. And not just community in one place, but community across the world, across the diaspora. That is a huge mandate.
Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we see each other, but we don't see each other. We see each other as over there or over there, because that's what has, this Eurocentric ideal has created, is that we're just independent of one another. And it's up for us to pull each other, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and that, not needing others. But when you really get down to the actual core and the crux of everything that CHN stands for, the first thing is community. And that we are not meant to be islands. We're not meant to just do everything on our own and be by ourselves. And independence is not the badge of, that you want to wear, because it's promoting this individualism that is not how our community was ever built. We were built to be together. We were built to learn together, to eat together, to talk together, to commune together, to fellowship. And when you take that into all the different aspects, learning, eating, all the different aspects and ways of life, you realize when you're doing it that way, it's empowering. You are empowered as an individual. The family is empowered. The community is empowered, not just locally, but nationally and ultimately globally. And when we have that level of unity, truly seeing each other, truly connecting with each other, truly embracing each other in all of our differences, that is when we, again, assume that power, reclaim that dignity that is oftentimes on a day-to-day basis, moment to moment, oftentimes, the attempts are to strip it away. But when we hold ourselves near and dear, literally embracing each other, literally embracing the ideals of community, then we can truly overcome anything. And I think that's one of the strengths of the messaging, our mission, our vision, as we move forward on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, and I can see that because I'm thinking about our own experience here with the Black Consciousness Festival in building community. Because we would have started officially in 2020 as an online platform for having these conversations with people of African descent around the world.
Yeah.
In an attempt to build that community, to build that awareness that, together we are stronger. And there is strength in our being different.
Yes.
And it's really about understanding that and respecting that, because for me, that is part of community. We're not the same. We don't want to be the same. Think about how boring it would be if we were all the same. So it's that awareness in terms of building community. And also, as we build community, getting away from that idea which has been ingrained in us about competition,
Right.
about not supporting each other. So, the Africans are something else, the Americans are something else, the
Mhm.
Brazil, those conversations which
Right.
really don't help us. But which I think it's a part of community building that we have to provide space for airing
Right.
and provide space for also working through how we
Right.
can move away from that narrative
Yeah.
and really get back to that place where we diverse, yes, we're different, yes, but at the end of the day we're all working toward the same thing: to empower ourselves,
Yes.
to recognize our humanity, to
Mhm.
own that humanity, and operate from that space of knowing and owning, and not just talking it, because it's easy to talk.
Right.
But I think that's the importance of of building that community as well.
Absolutely. And when we go through that, the emotional emancipation circles, for instance, there's so many different perspectives and so many different people that we all share that same bond. If for nothing else, we're all Black. And so,
Yes.
one, that safety is something that we don't all have an opportunity to share in on a day-to-day basis because we're not all able to work in all Black spaces. So for me, it's just that safety in knowing that I'm with my brothers, my sisters who know my experience, even if they don't know me. There's
Mm-hmm.
something within me that is readily, they can, I can and they can readily identify with. It's that sabona, it's that being seen, being heard, being valued. It's that Ubuntu, that strength in numbers, that all of the like the just the overwhelming characteristics of I am because you are. That us being here together is by nature an empowering statement. Individually, us, our presence, our ancestors got us here. And if we're here, there's still work to do and we're capable of doing it. And not by ourselves, not, carrying this heavy load by ourselves, but carrying it together. And being in those circles for me just called to my attention that there is so much work that we have to do, but we don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
it by ourselves. We don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with every load that is heavy, and yes, the moment you add two people to carry it, it becomes lighter. And then a
Yes.
third and a fourth pair of hands and a fifth, and now you don't even have a burden anymore. It's because we're all in it together. We're talking, we're communicating, we're opening up, and really being having the ability to have difficult conversations, things that are traumatic. Those are the times where you need community so that you're not bearing those burdens alone. Because some of these things
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with on a daily basis, they are hard, they are heavy, but we can do hard things, especially when we're doing them together. And I think
Mm-hmm.
once we all embrace that and realize that infighting and that kind of this and that and putting othering people, um,
Yes.
that's a Eurocentric mindset. That was part of it.
Yes.
That was by
Yes.
design. That's not an accident. And really being able
Yeah.
to call that in as it, and call it for what it is, and realize I'm
Mm-hmm.
othering somebody, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Where did this come
Mm-hmm.
from? And it's
Mm-hmm.
designed to separate us because the power
Mm-hmm.
that we have, the power that we can harness is so great that the only way to defeat us is to have us fighting ourselves. But once we
Mm-hmm.
connect and bond and truly join together, we're an indestructible force. And that is what I think a lot of our white, less melanated counterparts are afraid of, our power.
Yeah. 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 Because and that othering, as you see, is what lead to us, turning on each other,
Yeah.
to some of the conflict that we see in, because we don't see the humanity in each other. And I remember taking part in one of the circles, and so much being revealed within the community, because a lot of the things that we take for granted, that we think are a culture, we realize this is how this thing has affected us.
Yeah. Yeah.
because, for some of us, it's like, that's no longer important. I've got
Mhm.
over that, it's washed
Yeah.
over me. And then you're in these sessions where you realize, that's really not the case.
Mhm. Yeah. And really being able to recognize where you are in your blackness. That, and we talk about
Yes.
negrescence and like, where are you in not just acknowledging your blackness, but how your blackness shows up, and how do you show up for yourself? How do you show up in community? How do you show up for other Black people? What is your
Mm-hmm.
relationship with other Black people? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't necessarily see ourselves in other people, and that's where the othering comes in, because we've
Mm-hmm.
adopted some characteristics or features or beliefs or values from cultures that are not ours. And so as we,
Yeah.
embrace those, we're furthering ourselves away from the community that has been designed to build up, to bring together, to strengthen, to empower. And oftentimes we don't even think about it as Eurocentric. We just think, oh, we're different, or, you grew up in the South, I grew up in the North, or East Coast, West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
When it's like, no, I'm a big believer in, like, get to the underlying root cause. Like, what's underneath that? Some of these things are
Yes.
just symptoms, and when you chase the symptom, whether it's from a clinical perspective or otherwise, that's what you're chasing, is the symptom. But what's
Yes.
underneath that? And what's underneath that is a faulty mindset.
It's a
Is
fourth
a
mindset.
Yeah, it's a faulty mindset because it's now being influenced by Eurocentric ideals that were never designed for us. But as we move
Mm-hmm.
into different aspects of not just the US, but in different aspects of the world, that has
Mm-hmm.
we've all, colonization of everything is there. And so
It's
we're
there.
all getting that kind of sprinkled and washed over us. But just like everything else, it's like it can wash over you, but when do you internalize it? When do you make it
Mm-hmm.
yours? When you start
Mm-hmm.
owning it, that's when it becomes problematic.
Mm-hmm. And I think being in community helps because depending on and for the good community, it helps because you would be surrounded by people who would point that out to you, who
Right.
would lovingly say to you
Yeah.
that this is what I am seeing. You
Yeah.
know, you're saying one thing, but your actions are you're behaving like a colonial
Yeah.
master or
Mhm.
mistress
Yes.
because um in this journey of healing or in this journey of becoming aware, sometimes we're not even aware of the things that we're doing.
Right.
And so, being in community of like mind, or community where you have people who are not afraid to speak up, who are
Yeah.
fearless in terms of speaking up and saying what should be done, it helps with, your individual growth, your individual healing. And I think
Right.
that's another reason why community is so important for us.
Yeah, I think we've gotten away from like that healing circle, that communion, that fellowship together, because I think the pandemic definitely kind of had us all in our own respective homes, in our own respective rooms, and doing our, depending on who was working and how you were working, there was disconnection that was literally built in to our everyday lives. The
Yeah.
the public health approach was keeping everybody separate so we could keep everybody safe and healthy until we understood more about what was going on. But then that became what we were adopting. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
everything is on Zoom, everything is, we're interfacing here. But then we got really away from being together and truly,
Mm-hmm.
hugging. And that
Mm-hmm.
physical touch component is powerful.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
a hug will do a lot more and can do a lot more than words can do, because it's
Mm-hmm.
that we are here together. We are taking up the same space. We are interfacing, not just with our words, but in our physical presence. And that
Mm-hmm.
is powerful as well, because that is that physical proximity, that physical closeness, that physical connectedness that cannot happen when we are in our own separate pockets of the world and walled off and protected. And it wasn't ever designed to be that way. We were not
Yeah.
designed to be islands.
Yeah. We were not designed to be that way. And what I find amazing is there are some of us who still want to be that way.
Hmm.
Because I think for them, there's safety in hiding behind these things and
Yeah,
not really coming out and connecting the way we should.
right.
And in community, then one of the things I wonder about is how do we bring them in? Because part of my challenge is working with the idea that, everybody has a right to be. Yeah. So I need to respect that and give people the space to be and the right to be.
Right.
And on the other hand, we want to bring others along with us because we are recognizing the importance of community, what it's doing for us, the
Right.
ability to share safely.
Yeah.
And so you want to bring others along. And where do we strike the balance? Because in one breath, I'm like, you know what? I'm leaving those people behind. I really can't be bothered anymore. And then in the other breath, I'm doing that makes no sense.
Right. And it is
Because
about yeah, and
there's a balance.
it is that need for balance, because I know when I'm definitely around a lot of people at one time, sometimes I leave feeling drained. That's like an emotional, like I feel like, oh, I expended a lot of energy interfacing and talking and communing and fellowshipping. And when I leave, I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted. And so I do need that time for introspection for myself. I need time to do something in quiet, in solitude by myself, so that it does recharge me, so that I can have those interactions. And I think we have been, again, socialized to believe that like we have to be always on the go and doing something and plugging in and making sure. And sometimes it's like, but what about restoration? What about literally resting? What about recharging your body? And sometimes that requires solo activities for the mind, the body, and the spirit, so that we can be able to give our whole selves to our respective communities when the time is appropriate. And finding that balance is difficult, because we're getting messaging even through our cell phones. Even when we're not necessarily, interfacing in a way that's productive, most of us have cell phones and everything is there, from videos and social media and our telephones and our text messages. So that's false connectedness through a device, but it's not necessarily the
It's not
connectedness
real.
that is able to be cultivated and truly exercising that connectedness that is going to promote healing. Because I do believe sometimes social media, depending on how it's used or abused or misused, can contribute to some of the dis-ease that is ongoing in our, definitely in our younger people, but even in adults, because we're seeing curated images that are not a reflection of reality. We're seeing images and things that are not necessarily reflective of the people that they're supposedly representing. And so now we are creating that competition. We're creating that, dissonance between the groups that we're supposed to bring us together. But with every piece of technology, there's a positive and constructive, and then there's this negative and destructive. And I find that we are becoming more tribal, but more tribal in a polarizing way versus in a community-based way. And when I look at that, I see, again, we are taking a thing that's supposed to be beautiful and potentially turning into something that it has its ugly features.
And I think part of that too is I was talking with a friend earlier, and we were talking about the impact of social media and all of our interactions. This wanting always to have what I would call a savior. So outsourcing your power always to something else.
Yeah.
And then becoming a victim. You've given it all away, and then you become a victim because look at what it is doing to me.
Right.
As again, seeing that, we could turn it off.
Yeah.
We could say no, we could find different ways of engaging, because I remember I think it would have been 2021, we had a number of horrendous killings here, where young people were being gunned down by the police. It was such a traumatic. I recognize the trauma now, how I felt in my body, because I remembered one day I was home and I just started crying.
Yeah.
Because I felt so helpless. And you were getting all of these images on WhatsApp, all of the things as they were happening. So that whole thing, and I remember I was just there crying, crying, crying. And
Yeah.
after that, I made a decision to come off WhatsApp because
Mhm.
it was just too much.
Too much. Hmm.
It was just too much. All of these things coming at you.
Yeah.
And then my body feeling a particular way, my reacting a particular way, and then getting more angry about the thing when
Mhm.
really it's not about that.
No.
So I made the decision, you know what, for my peace of mind, for my well-being, I'm going to come off this thing. And it
Yeah.
has helped.
Yeah. And I
It
think
has helped.
as you talk about it, you just walked through those stages of kind of like ingestion of material, but then
Mhm.
how it becomes a part of you and what it does
Yes.
to your physical body. Something that was an image or, that wasn't necessarily by itself is, triggering, but now that it's been ingested, it is now
Mhm.
being internalized and now it is becoming a part of you. And that is, affecting all different aspects, not just this, but your
Mhm.
physical organs, your stress
Yeah.
hormones. And then all these other things are becoming skewed and imbalanced. And then we try to do
Mhm.
other things to correct those imbalances when the
Yeah.
root cause is these triggering images being
Yeah.
inundated with those on a day-to-day
On the
basis.
daily. Yeah.
And so
And,
then now, there's all these different supplants of trying to, take care of ourselves by addressing the symptom. But
yes.
now the actual underlying is like, yeah, these things are going on in the world and it's not going to end. But we don't have to necessarily ingest them at the rate and rhythm that we continuously do on a day-to-day basis, having
Yeah.
everything at our fingertips.
Everything. And then what is also triggering and concerning is the conversations around those things.
Oh yeah.
How in there we continue the cutting down of each other, the othering, the supporting those things which aren't really right, for
Right.
want of a better word. And again, not understanding what we're doing and not taking responsibility for our role in our healing and
Right.
our role in building community.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's where, when I look at CHN and Community Healing Network, it's in the name. It's the
Yes.
community. It's the healing
Yes.
component. And I think that's the part where I feel we can get we're working on, we're growing into the community part, the
Yes.
networking in terms of being able to bring each other together. This person can be over here in Brazil, but this person is over here in the US. This person is in Trinidad and Tobago. We are doing that. We're doing that
Yes.
now. But it's that
Yes.
middle part, that healing part, that is
Yes.
work and
That is
requires
work.
consistency, that
Yeah.
requires literally looking at some of our stuff for what it
Mm-hmm.
truly is and
Mm-hmm.
where it came from and
Mm-hmm.
undoing it. Because this isn't just something that happened this morning. This
Nope.
isn't something that just happened last year. This is ancestral traumas that we're trying to, intergenerational traumas that we're trying to heal from. That
Mm-hmm.
mindset of this is just who I am for right now,
Yes.
but we can, but it requires discipline. It requires
It
work.
requires discipline.
And it can be painful to address some of those things because it does manifest that ugliness
Mm-hmm.
about ourselves as individuals, even as a people, that we just don't want to face on an ongoing basis. But the way to heal
Mm-hmm.
is by going through, not going under, not trying to go over, not going around, but going through. And I think a lot of people, that's where we hesitate, or that's where we fall short, because we get
Yes.
uncomfortable and it starts to
Yeah.
hurt a little more.
Yeah.
It's gonna hurt a little more until you actually confront it, look it in the face, and then can walk through. But on the other side, those are where the rewards, the benefits, and the overall joy is waiting on the other side of that pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that walk through, and I'm so happy that we connected,
Yes,
the Black Consciousness Festival, because it happened, how these things happen when they're supposed to. A friend
always.
of mine sent me a video, I think something that was on YouTube about emotional emancipation circles. And I was totally blown and I shared it with Sean. And
Hmm.
Sean reached out And next thing you know, we were having a conversation last year with Jan
Right.
on emotional emancipation circles. And then, we did some of the circles after. And I think that's an important part of building community, reaching
Right.
out to others.
Yeah.
As you say, wherever we are in the world, but it is that willingness to reach out and engage with others and seeing the alignment in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because there's no competition really. We all walk in different paths towards the same thing.
Yes.
And it is so great to connect and to share and to speak to that. And to feel the love and support,
Yeah.
the genuine love and support. And I think that's important, when we talk about building community.
Yeah. And one thing that I learned from Enola, and I was one of those people who always said, the struggle continues. And she was like, no, cut that out. Like, we're not going to be in this struggle anymore. Like, no, because struggle means that you're just continuing to strive and never, getting anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, one of those things that's not even empowering. That means you're just going to be in strife and struggling into perpetuity. Who wants to live like that?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those messages that we have internalized as Black people, that we're just going to be in the struggle. I remember when I lived in Cuba, even there, they would say en la lucha, which is like in the struggle. And I was like, we say that at home. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're saying it in Spanish, but we said the same thing at home. And the bigger scheme of thing is that it has been washed over us that we're just gonna, as Black people, we're always gonna be struggling. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And when she said that, she's like, stop it, stop saying it. She said it way more eloquently. But the point was, feeding yourself that we're always gonna be struggling. And guess what?
Yeah.
We're always gonna struggle, but we don't have to.
Yes.
We don't have to. And now it's time to take that same energy of we're always going to be struggling and turns into, no, we're always going to be flourishing. We're always going to be thriving. It takes the same energy. Why not direct it towards something that is empowering?
Yeah.
And really learning how to change the word selection is about changing this. And I think that's where, again, that emotional emancipation circles and that psychological liberation is what brings us back to who we were designed to be. And then again, that healing component takes us from where we are and gets us on a journey, on a process of where we can be and where we're going.
Yeah, that change in mindset, that language, and we have that same struggle thing. How are you? Poor and struggling, and it's like there's a badge of honor. There's a badge of honor in saying that, right?
But when you hear it, you're like, why do you want to be that?
Why do you
want to be poor and struggling? Like, why do you want to be in the struggle? Why? It doesn't even sound right. Yeah.
And I think part of it is this idea of, we shouldn't play up ourselves. We always have to downplay. We always have to, because of some ideas that have been given to us, which are not ours.
That are not that part. They're not ours.
Not ours. Yeah.
And we can no longer continue to carry the water and do the work of our Eurocentric, of a Eurocentric mindset. Because now that's just making the job easier. Having those values, let's internalize African values, Afrocentric values. Let's internalize those. Truth and justice and community and healing, all those values that are going to make us stronger. Not the ones that are going to weaken us. There's enough powers that are circulating on a day-to-day basis. And really being able to do that with each other is an empowering component of Blackness. Because when we do this together, it doesn't matter if you're in Brazil, if you're in the US, if you're on the continent, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It matters that we're doing it in unison together and working toward that flourishing, working toward that in the flourishing together, in the growing together, in the developing together, in the loving together. All of those are more empowering than struggle. It's almost like I'm allergic to it. I don't even want to say it anymore. I don't even want to say that anymore.
We don't want to say it anymore, And it's still that mindset in the face of all the beautiful things we've created in the diaspora, the music, food, the dance, still that idea comes through, because I think there's a disconnect between the beauty
Yeah.
we have been able to create through this negative enslavement experience,
Yes.
and this thing which has, we have we continue to allow it then, because I think part of the thing is it's comfortable for us.
Yeah. But we
It's
have to get
comfortable, it's easy.
uncomfortable. We have to
We
get
have to get
uncomfortable with being in the struggle. That can't be a place where we rest and say, this is just our plight. Says
Yes.
who?
We've arrived.
Yeah. Who said that? Because there
Yeah.
is another side to this. This is a continuum. This is not a static place. And I don't want to live here. But I want to live somewhere else, in a place and in a space where we are all growing. Because guess what? We have the power to do it. I just think about all the power that people talk about in terms of like the sneaker industry and the music industry. And if we use all of that collective power all over the world,
Yes,
we could take over. But that's where the fear comes in.
Yes.
That if we unite, we
Yes.
are a force that cannot be overcome. And
Cannot
so
be
all the different aspects are to tear down. But once we start building each other up, empowering each other, and not making everything into a competition, there is nothing that we can't do, because we're doing it together.
We're doing it together. And I think an important part of that is tapping into our spirituality, tapping into those elements which are available for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, we probably don't give enough attention to, or we
Right.
do it partway.
Yes,
But
inconsistently.
But fully embracing, that spirituality would
Right.
help us.
Absolutely.
So let's talk some more about, the plans for organization. As part of our growth and our own community building, we have a couple of initiatives. So we're planning to go to Brazil next year.
Yes.
To really connect, that in-person thing, to connect on the ground with some of our siblings across there, and build those relationships that we've been building over the years.
Right.
I'm looking at what is happening here, and I know as part of CHN's vision, there are some other plans that you may have in the works. I don't know if you want to you want to share what some of those may be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I look forward to is just growing these conversations and being able to have these conversations more often. And one of the things I think is CHN's strength is that we have the framework in terms of emotional emancipation circles so that they can be everywhere. And as we're looking to the next year, being able to explore different aspects of this movement, and globally means outside of where we currently are, where you currently are, but so that we're everywhere and connected everywhere. And so really being able to explore what those relationships look like in Benin, what they look like in Brazil. And one of our initiatives in Benin for the next and upcoming year is really being able to connect with younger people and how we grow these circles for younger people. Because again, we are all getting to places where we're like, whoa, something went amiss. But now we have to make sure this message is connecting with people at a younger age, because all the messages are competing. From the time that people can articulate, think, and hear, they're getting all these messages, but our message has to be not just the message of CHN, but the message of community and healing and connectedness and reconnecting has to start earlier, so the values permeate at a younger age so that they can be carried forth into local communities and families, individuals, but also globally as well.
Yeah, great. And I think one of the things we have to talk through as we build communities, the language issue that we may have, the English speakers, the Portuguese speakers, the Spanish speakers, the Patois speakers,
yes.
the French speakers, looking at that too and finding ways of building community.
Right. And I think I'm not a big fan of AI, because I think AI in the wrong hands can turn into a complete disaster.
Yeah.
But just like every other technology, when used in the right way for the right reasons, then we have the ability to do so. My husband and I just saw someone who could not speak, her only language was English. But AI was able to not just translate her voice and her words, but even the way that she pronounced words into a completely different language, and it was seamless. And so being able to have those ongoing conversations in different languages, dynamic, that would be a way to, continue to use AI. But it's AI again has its positive and its potentially dangerous and disastrous aspects, but it's there. And the idea that, those of us who are multilingual continue to help getting things translated so that they can be digested in a way that's convenient.
Yeah. And stepping up, when we do these in-person tours, stepping up and offering your services to for others who are there. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So building community is fun. I say we're coming down to that hour.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is, I gotta say, Erica, when I saw you for the first time, your smile is infectious. I think you have pretty teeth. I think you have a gorgeous smile. And I was smiling because I saw your smile. And I think that is, again, that warmth, that friendliness, that is a barrier, tear down, or, it tears down barriers, because just that warm smile means that you've already seen me.
Yes.
You don't know me. You did not know me. We had, known of each other, but you didn't know me. But when I saw your smile, it tears down a whole lot of barriers. And that right there is where healing takes place. That right there is a healing presence. That right there is how we go from diverting your eyes when you see a Black person in the store or in the same conference room. Instead of diverting your eyes, sit together. Get to know each other, but just simple gesture as a smile, just warm eyes. That is where the healing process can begin, because now we're seeing each other. Now we're recognizing each other, and we're holding space for each other. And that right there is invaluable. It was invaluable for me. And so I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate your kind words. And just being in this space with you, sharing this space with you, has been a blessing. So thank you.
So thank you. I'm getting all teary-eyed here. So you know how these things go, because you do what you think you're supposed to do, and then you get this feedback from being seen.
Yes.
And I recognize that Sawubona meditation does so much for my spirit whenever I hear it. Every time I hear it, I get something different from it. So it's in light of that, that being seen, that freshness that comes with building community.
Yes. So smile at someone today. When you see your brothers and your sisters, smile at them.
Just smile. Yeah, be vulnerable. Just share that willingness to smile.
Share that moment of eye contact and smiling. You don't know what's going to do to the other person. You really don't.
Yes. Yeah. And send a blessing if you can, quietly, as you see them, as you smile with them. So yes.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
So thank you. So if you could take a deep breath, just cementing all of this, Thank you. Thank you for the love and the sharing. Blessings. Looking forward to more conversations. Thank you, Laurena.
You as well.
Have a beautiful day.
Yeah, create a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.